was your average investment banking analyst, working 100 hours a week, learning as much as I possibly could about the financial markets, how the world worked, what made it go round, money. I was a child of two middle-class parents, hardworking, and I thought I had made it by breaking into the elite world of Wall Street. Until one day, I received an invitation to this lovely little event called Where Hollywood Meets Wall Street. Enchanted by the idea of meeting Hollywood actors and stars, I quickly RSVP'd, counting down the days to this big event. However, when I arrived, there were no Hollywood stars to be seen, no famous actors. Instead, I met a sea of what we call starving artists in America. Filmmakers, theater producers, actors, all hoping they'll meet their angel that night, the someone who would give them the money to finally go make their big project and give them their big break. So clearly, I was actually one of the more popular people at the party as one of the very few people from a bank. And no matter how many times I said, no, you don't understand, I'm just a banking analyst, I just crunch numbers, I just do spreadsheets, I don't have any money, they all continued to pour their business cards into my pocket. So I went home that night in shock, not really understanding what had happened, and it wasn't until 2 days later that I realized what had happened. I received a FedEx package from one of the filmmakers I had met that night. He had sent me his script with a nice little cover note that said, "Dear Danae, I enjoyed meeting you, and I look forward to you funding my film." It was at that moment that my heart sank. How could a man with a lifetime of experience, been telling stories his whole life, be begging me, a young girl with almost no experience, for money? What was wrong with the world? So at this moment, I did what any young girl would do, distraught. I called my mom. And I proceeded for the next 20 minutes to vent about how unjust the world was. How could we be living in this country called America? We call ourselves the land of all opportunity. Yet you still had to know somebody rich. You still had to have that rich uncle. You still had to have a trust fund if you want your ideas to come to life. So after 20 minutes of exhausting myself, ranting to my mom, as she so eloquently does, responded quietly and calmly, and she said, "Well, Danae, if you're so upset, remember this moment and this feeling and go do something about it." So that's what I did. I quit finance a couple years later. I left Wall Street, and I went back to business school with one mission, and that was to democratize fundraising. I had this whole offline fund idea, but it was at business school that I met my co-founders, who actually had come from technology backgrounds, and they too had experienced their fundraising woes trying to raise money for cancer research or theater productions in Chicago. But they said, "Danae, if you really want to democratize fundraising, if you really want to give anybody the opportunity to raise money for anything, anywhere in the world, or if you really want to give anybody the opportunity to fund anything, you need to use the only tool that efficiently lets you do that. And that's called the internet." So that's what we did. In 2006, we got together, we started a company called Indiegogo. It was the very first online funding platform. It's now the largest in the world in over 200 countries with 50,000 campaigns running. But I give you that as context, not to talk about the company, but to talk about how one idea 3 years ago has now spawned an entire industry. An industry that actually has its own name now, and it's called crowdfunding. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about crowdfunding, what it is, who uses it, why you use it, and hopefully all of you will go home tonight equipped with the tips and tools to go launch your own crowdfunding campaigns. But before we get into the tips and details, I want to tell you a story. Crowdfunding is actually nothing new. Crowdfunding has existed since the beginning of time, actually. And one of the oldest stories is that of the Statue of Liberty. Most people know that the statue was actually a gift given from France to the United States. But what most people don't know is that the pedestal upon which it sits was not included in that gift. And the United States actually had to raise $300,000 to build it. Unfortunately, they only had $150,000. And so not to let the financing gap prevent the statue from going up, a citizen by the name of Pulitzer, who actually owned a newspaper that is now known as the New York Times, took it into his own hands to create a campaign and raise the money from the people. He used the only communication device that he had access to, his own newspaper, and he put out a call to action, and he asked people to fund it. And they did. Thousands of people put out hundreds of thousands of dollars to close the financing gap and get the statue built. And they did it for no other reason except to get the statue built and be part of American history. So that's what crowdfunding is. All it is the pooling of capital from people, by people passionate about the same idea. And often in exchange, what happens is they get a perk. For the people in America, they just wanted to, they got to be a part of American history. So who is doing it? Well, pretty much everybody. We have inventors in Hong Kong. We have fashion designers in France. We have actually a hip-hop Palestinian rap group crowdfunding for their next album. We actually, even on Indiegogo, had a baby crowdfunded just last month. A young couple couldn't afford in vitro fertilization, so they went online and they created a campaign and raised the money to have the medical treatment. So you might be saying, well, yeah, you're telling me all these people are doing it, but who really is doing it? Well, I want to introduce you to 3 people. First is Pastor Marian. Most people know him across the world as the Schindler of the Congo. For the last decade, he's been saving thousands or hundreds of people's lives by hiding them from execution. Unfortunately, a few months ago, his life became in jeopardy, and 2 reporters who had been covering his story for the last decade took it upon them to save his life. They created a crowdfunding campaign, and they raised almost $50,000 to pay for him to fly from the Congo to South Africa and buy him a new kidney. Besides causes, we also have entrepreneurs and small businesses. I want to introduce you to Jean-Marc. He's an inventor based in the UK who came up with this new 3D printer, a low-cost 3D printer. Unfortunately, he didn't have the funds to prototype it and get it out into the marketplace. So what he did, he launched a crowdfunding campaign and he pre-sold to over 300 people across the world his 3D printer and raised almost $160,000, more than he even needed to get it out into the market. And then we have creatives, artists, painters, filmmakers, like the one who's making this film called Salam Dunk in Iraq. It's a documentary about the positive impact basketball is having on young girls. Actually, a topic very near and dear to my heart is a young girl who grew up playing basketball. And they lacked the funds to finish the film, so they went online and they raised $15,000 in the first campaign for production funds, and then they launched a second campaign to raise $4,000 so that they could complete their fund. So you might be asking, well, who are the people actually funding these things? Well, for Pastor Marian, it was the people passionate about his cause. It's all the viewers who've been watching his story unfold for the last 10 years. Watching him save all these lives, what they realized is for the cost of just a couple bucks, they could actually save his life. And for Jean-Marc, his funders are his customers, people who wanted the 3D printer. And for the documentary, it's the fans, the people who want to see this film made. So why are these people funding it? There's actually 4 reasons why people fund anything, ever. The first is they want to see it happen. They want to do good. The second is they want the actual perk. With Jean-Marc, people actually wanted that printer. And the third reason is they want to participate. As someone growing up impacted by basketball, helping me build confidence, I wanted to be part of this film and allow basketball to impact girls across the world. So I wanted to be part of that movement. That's why I funded that film. There's also a 4th reason why people fund. It's probably a reason most of you are familiar with, and that's called return, profit participation. You put money into something and you get more back. Well, that's one thing that doesn't happen on crowdfunding right now, and for reasons of it's actually illegal in most countries. But we'll talk about that in a second. So I actually want to introduce you to another story, Brian and Vlad. They're 2 inventors and entrepreneurs in the United States who actually went down the profit participation path. They came out with this new contraption called the Satari Star. It's really cool. And they went to 43 VCs hoping that they'd get their funding. But all 43 of them loved the idea, but all rejected them, wanting them to go back to the garage, build out their prototype, get into the marketplace, and get more traction. So after they closed the door on the ROI path, they opened the doors to all the other reasons why people fund, and they launched their crowdfunding campaign, which I'll show you now.
Hi, I'm Brian. And I'm Vlad. Together we call ourselves Satari. We both love taking video, but hate being stuck in front of the webcam. Or having friends do it for you. And since video is getting so good on our phones, we came up with a cool new mobile video accessory that we'd like to share with you. The idea is relatively simple. Slip your video phone into our base, grab the marker, if the base can see the marker, it will follow it. With the marker, you can hold it in your hand, or you can clip it on your clothes. You can need your help to refine the design and make this a reality. What we want to do is take this looks-like model and this works-like model and put them together into one and offer it to you for pre-order. And for those who support us, we'll involve you in our design process. Thanks for your support. We look forward to hearing from you.
I can stand up here and talk about how crowdfunding is changing the lives of everybody, but some of you might be out there and be thinking, well, I have an idea, I want to try crowdfunding, that's what's going to help me get my idea off the ground. And some of you might be actually thinking, well, I have an idea, I have a new venture, I actually don't need the money, I have a rich uncle, or I have a trust fund, or I know the sheik, and they're going to give me the money to go make that idea happen. But I want to tell you today that actually that's the wrong answer. Whether you had the money or not, you should be trying crowdfunding, because there's actually more benefits than just money when you raise money via the crowd. Clearly money is one of them, but the second most important benefit is that it gives you an opportunity to gauge the demand for your product and to mitigate your risk. So an example of that is Brian and Vlad. When they launched their campaign and raised $25,000, they were able to prove that there was a marketplace for them. Had they borrowed the money and gone into debt and then come out with a product that no one cared about, that would have been a big mistake. Another benefit of crowdfunding is that it allows you to test your marketing. So throughout their entire crowdfunding campaign, they were able to have a conversation with their funders and get feedback on what product they wanted. It also allowed them to get extra promotion. With being on Indiegogo, or the crowdfunding platform that they were on, they were able to get on the cover of Gizmodo and TechCrunch, which are big tech blogs in America, which is basically loaded with readers of people who exactly wanted their product. And what it also did is that it enabled them to get customer data that they wouldn't have otherwise gotten. If they just tried to sell their product on Amazon, they would have never known who their customers were. Now they have their email addresses, they know their locations, they know where they are. Invaluable data for them to build their business. And the last reason why you want to, the benefits of crowdfunding is that it allows you to actually curry serendipity, as we call it. And that's the idea of putting something out into the world. You'll never know what positivity will come back. After Brian and Vlad launched their crowdfunding campaign, guess who came knocking on their door at the end? 3 of the 43 VCs who had originally rejected them wanted to talk to them again. So why now? I don't need to educate this audience on the power of the internet and the idea of ideas spreading virally. But we live in a new world where things are social, where people do things based on relationship. We are interconnected to one another, so we can do it with others. So right now, we're living in a world where $1 can actually bring another. So the power of $1 is much greater. So how do you actually create a campaign? It's pretty simple. It's just 6 steps. You pick a crowdfunding platform, you create your campaign, you engage your audience, you use all the social media tools that everybody embeds, widgets, Facebook, all that good stuff. You get your money, you track your analytics, who is funding you, who's sharing you, you collect your money, and you fulfill your perks. But the next slide I'm going to talk about how do you actually be successful, and I could probably talk for hours on this, but it all comes down to just 3 important elements. One is it starts with an honest and engaging pitch. So that includes putting a video of who you are into your pitch, why you need to be part of, why you need to make this project happen. We know that campaigns with videos in their campaigns raise on average 122% more than campaigns that don't. It also means being really realistic with your financial goal, being specific with your use of funds. How much money are you looking to raise, and where are you going to go put your money towards? You don't need to raise 100% of your funds all at once. You can do multiple campaigns, but if you're specific in how you're going to spend your money, people will more likely fund you. It also means having a specific deadline. So we know on our site, campaigns that run 60 to 70 days, that's a sweet spot. They raise on average 140% more than campaigns that are shorter or longer. It also means offering really cool and interesting perks at all different funding levels. So give people stuff that they can't go buy at the mall. Give them experiences, make it exclusive, offer them discounts. The second most important thing about how to be successful raising money via the crowd is to be proactive. We know that campaigns that do 11 or more updates to their funders raise on average 137% more than campaigns that don't. And we know that campaigns that have four team members or more raise on average 72% more than campaigns that don't. So the last and third and final reason or way to be successful using crowdfunding is to make sure you have an audience that cares. So if you've been proactive, you've done a great pitch, and you've raised $0, that's actually okay, because that means no one wants your thing. And they've just saved you from spending all your time and money going and creating something that nobody wants. But if you do have an audience that cares and you seed your campaign with people close to you, typically people raise 30 to 40% from friends and family, and then they see the tipping point going into strangers. So one thing I didn't say here is what doesn't matter for having a successful crowdfunding campaign is you don't need to have that rich uncle. You don't need to be sitting on a trust fund. I hope you realize that this is why crowdfunding is the ultimate leveler of the funding playing field. And a great statistic that showcases that is the fact that women, for example, are 5 times more successful using crowdfunding to raise money than they are in the venture world, at least in the United States. So in the United States, 8% of all VC-backed companies are led by women, but at least on our platform, I can't speak for others, 40% of the successful campaigns that are run on our platform are run by women. So I hope that helps you understand how crazy it is that crowdfunding is really closing the funding gap. And just to give you a sense, there's now over 300 platforms since our start that have emerged in the last couple of years, platforms across the world all doing this stuff. And if you go to that link below, you'll take your pick and get to see all of them. So where are we headed next? For those of you who just heard of crowdfunding today, you're not that late. It's still very early. We're in our infancy. What we fundamentally believe is that crowdfunding will become the norm. It will become like blogging. Everyone will have a crowdfunding page. There's going to be a shift to brands and organizations. We're already working with companies to offer crowdfunding to their customers. For example, if you're a medical device company and you make prosthetic legs that are maybe too expensive for the average person to buy, but insurance companies won't pay for it, these companies are going to have their crowdfunding site, so when customers come to their website, they can click on the link, they can create a campaign, raise money from their friends and family to go buy that prosthetic limb. And then we're going to see crowdfunding becoming an established piece of the funding ecosystem. It's not going away, it's not replacing anything, it's just a new and complementary funding channel that's here to stay. And we actually also see that for-profit opportunities, so that fourth reason why people fund the return, actually coming into the mix. We just actually partnered with President Obama's Startup America initiative, which has spurred all this conversation around loosening the laws that the SEC has in America around what is possible to invest in online. So that change might happen sooner than we all expected. And finally, we believe that the evolution is going to be like the television industry. 30 years ago in America, sorry all my examples are from there, that's where I'm from, but there were three television channels, ABC, NBC, CBS. That's all we got. Today we have hundreds. So within crowdfunding, we have a few banks that are deciding who we loan to and who gets the money. Well, tomorrow all of us are going to be our own bank. The people sitting next to you are going to be your bank. So here's a little.
Hi, my name's Jeffrey Self, and I didn't always look like this.
Once upon a time, I had a full set of teeth just like you.
But over the weekend, I chipped my tooth, and now, when I smile, I look like this. Now, I love the Beverly Hillbillies as much as the next guy, but I don't want to look like I'm guest starring as their cousin Chester.
Y'all's house sure is nice.
There's this thing called dental insurance, and I don't have any. I just got back from the dentist, and not only did they have to give me a root canal because of an infection inside of my broken tooth, but they also let me know that a brand new tooth will cost $2,000.
That's a lot of money.
Okay, so here's my crazy idea. I'm reaching out to you, my YouTube viewers, my Twitter followers, my blog readers, my Facebook friends, Barbara Walters. Barbara Walters doesn't follow me on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter, Barbara Walters. Sorry, stick to the point. And I'm asking you for help. If everyone who watched this donated $1, $2, $5, that would get me so much closer to a new tooth. I know this is crazy and weird and desperate, but that's pretty much exactly what I am. Think of it this way. The next time you see me eating a piece of thick, juicy New York strip, you can think, I'm part of that chain. So seriously, $1, $2, $5, $10, whatever you can give to get me one step closer to having a tooth. Again, fully aware of how weird this is. Seriously asking for your help, so if there's anything you can do, big or small, I would greatly, truly, and forever appreciate it. Because after all, Doesn't everyone deserve a front tooth?
So clearly, anyone can raise money for anything if that didn't prove that to you. People young and old, black or white, male or female, rich or poor. The only question is, are you next? Thank you.